Hello friends, I'm Gia, and in this tutorial, we're going to be drawing this cute strawberry ice cream cone. As always, I will be drawing in the Procreate app on the iPad Pro, and my canvas size is set to 3000 pixels square at 300 dpi. If the layer limits on your iPad are too low at that size, you can set your canvas to 1500 pixels square at 300 dpi to get more layers. I will be sketching with the 6B pencil. We're going to start with a short line down the center of the canvas, and you want that positioned in the lower section of the canvas. Now you're going to add a diagonal line to the left of that, and one to the right. Then you're going to top that off with a rectangle. And add a line at the bottom. And this is the basic shape of our ice cream cone, but we don't want it to be quite so angular. So we're going to replace all of those straight lines with curves. So go in and round out those corners. And add a slight curve to each line. And you can erase the original lines just to clean it up a bit. Now we're going to sketch the ice cream scoops on a different layer so that we have the flexibility to overlap, make changes, and move things around easily. So add a new layer, and we're going to draw 3 ovals. Now the first one is going to be the largest, and you want it to overlap the top of the cone, and you also want it to be slightly wider than the cone as well. And since we're on a separate layer, we can move that around until it's where we want it. Now the second oval will be slightly smaller, and it will overlap the first. And then the third oval will be the smallest. Now I think we need a little bit more room at the top and the bottom, so I'm just going to select those 2 layers, tap on the selection tool, and just reduce the size slightly. Now let's define the shape of each of these scoops a little bit more. On the largest oval, draw a couple waves along the bottom edge. And then erase the lines you don't need so that you can see that shape a little bit better. You can also go back to the cone layer and erase that top edge that we don't need. And we're going to repeat that same process for the other 2 scoops. So just create a little wave shape along the bottom edge and erase the areas you don't need. Also make adjustments to the overall shape however you need to. Now there's our general shape. Let's add a few more details. Add a couple crisscrossing lines on the cone. And remember, the cone is supposed to be round, so those lines should be slightly curved. And then on this largest scoop of ice cream, we can even add a little drip, like the ice cream is melting. So just add a teardrop shape to that. And then we're going to add a little strawberry on top. So create another new layer and draw a tilted triangle. Then you're going to make the shape more round, just like we did with the cone. And erase all of the unneeded lines. Go back to your layer with the ice cream scoops and erase that line that's intersecting the strawberry as well. Back on the strawberry layer, add 3 little shapes, kind of like teardrop shapes for the leafy top. And then you can add a few little strokes for the seeds. Let's go ahead and pinch those 3 layers together to merge them. Now we want to add 2 large strawberries on either side of the cone. So create a new layer. And again, we're going to start with basic triangle shapes. And we're going to have them on slightly different angles. So let's have one here. And these are going to be partially hidden behind the cone. So have the shapes overlap. And let's do a second strawberry almost leaning down on this side. Again, once you have those basic shapes created, you can go ahead and make them more rounded. And erase those original lines. Add the leafy tops. This time we'll give it a full leaf shape on the top. And feel free to vary the shapes of the leaves or the style. Add a few seeds. And now we can give all of these objects a little personality. So for the strawberries, we can keep it simple and just draw 2 small dots for the eyes and a little curve for the mouth. I'm actually going to make that a little bit bigger. And we'll do the same for these as well. And for the face on the ice cream, we can use 2 crescent shapes, basically, for the eyes, and essentially a half circle for the mouth. We'll make an open smile this time. Now we can pinch those layers together as well. And I actually think the ice cream scoops are a little bit high. So I'm going to select those top 2 scoops. And then making sure that freeform is selected, I'm going to just kind of squish those a little bit and move them down. Now I can select the strawberry and put that back in place. Okay, I think that's a little better. Now let's create a new layer. So we're basically going to frame this shape. So you want to draw a nice big circle, hold your pencil down, and then tap ellipse so that the editing mode comes up, and then you can tap circle. The other thing you can do is draw your circle freehand, hold your pencil down, and tap the screen, and it will snap to a circle for you. You can then tap where it says circle so that you can edit the shape slightly. In terms of positioning, we want it to be a little bit below the top of that strawberry. So you can move it, adjust the size as you need to, as well as the position, and tap the screen when you're done. Now we want to flatten out this bottom half of the circle. So just draw a line across the bottom section and erase the areas we don't need. And also go ahead and erase any areas that overlap the illustration. Now we can create shadows by adding little ovals below the ice cream and the strawberries. And just for fun, let's add a few dots in different sizes inside and outside of the circle. As well as a few sparkles. Now you can pinch those two sketch layers together to merge them and reduce the opacity. This is the color palette I'll be using. If you'd like to use the same colors, there's a link in the description where you can go to get the hex codes or download the swatches file, which you can import directly into Procreate. Let's create a new layer and drag it below the sketch layer. Choose the monoline brush and the light orange from the palette. Outline the top of the cone. And once the shape is fully enclosed, you can drag and drop the swatch to fill. Now create a new layer and drag that below. Now we're going to ink the bottom part of the cone on this new layer. And these two layers will overlap. So let's just go ahead and reduce the opacity on that top section so that we can see what we're doing below it. So go ahead and again, outline the shape. And drag and drop to fill. You can turn the opacity back up on that top section. And on this bottom layer, turn on Alpha Lock. Then you're going to switch to the soft brush, which you can find in the airbrushing section of the brush library, and choose the orange from the palette. Now you're going to add a little shading to the top edge and the right side of the cone. Now switch to the cream color and add a little line of highlights along the left edge. Now go to the layer with the top section of the cone and turn on Alpha Lock on that layer as well. While we've got the cream color in use, go ahead and add a little highlight along the bottom edge of that top section. If it's a little difficult to see with the sketch, you can temporarily turn that off. So just add a little highlight there. Switch back to the orange color. And you're going to add a little shading along the top, making sure it falls just below where the ice cream is going to be. Now you're going to go back to that lower layer, add a new layer above it, and make that new layer a clipping mask. Switch back to the monoline brush and reduce the size to about 25%. Using the orange color, go ahead and ink those lines. Now on that clipping mask layer, turn on Alpha Lock. Go to your recent section of the brush library so you can quickly switch back to the soft brush. choose the dark orange and add a little shading to the right side of those lines so that they stand out from the shading below. Again, if you're having a hard time seeing with the sketch on, you can just temporarily turn that off. Now switch to the light orange and add some highlights to the left side of those lines so that those areas don't contrast quite so much with the highlights below. Now let's go back to this layer below, switch to the dark orange, and then also choose the technical pen, which you'll find in the inking section of the brush library. Here it is. And what we're going to do is draw a line of shadow along the top section of these diamonds. Now you don't have to do it on every single one, but do it on enough of them to give the cone a little bit of dimension. All right, I'm going to turn my sketch back on and select all the cone layers and group them. Now create a new layer above that group, switch back to the monoline brush, and choose pink from the palette. Let's go ahead and ink this largest scoop of ice cream. Turn on Alpha Lock on that layer, choose the dark pink, and switch to the soft brush. And we're going to add some shading along the lower edge and the right side. Again, I'm going to turn off my sketch layer just so that I can get a better sense of how the shading looks. So you want it to be fairly subtle. Then you can reduce the size of that brush and add a little shading to the drip as well. Then you can turn your sketch back on to use as a guide, because you can add a little shading along the edge where the second scoop will meet. All right, let's get that second scoop inked. Create a new layer, switch to the cream color, go back to the monoline brush, and go ahead and outline that shape and then fill with color. All right, so turn on Alpha Lock on that layer, then switch to the pale peach, go back to the soft brush, and again, you're going to add your shading along the right side and a little bit on the bottom edge as well. All right, let's do that one more time for the top scoop. Create a new layer, switch to the monoline brush. This time we're going to choose the lavender. Outline that shape. And fill. Turn on Alpha Lock. Choose the dark lavender. Back to the soft brush. And add your shading. Now for that little strawberry. Create a new layer, go back to the monoline brush, and choose the light red. Ink and fill the shape. Turn on Alpha Lock, switch back to the soft brush. We're going to do some shading in the red. You'll probably have to reduce the size of that soft brush, and as usual, it will help to turn your sketch off so you can see exactly where the shading is landing. Then switch to the dark pink and add just a little subtle highlight along the opposite edge. Now create a new layer, switch back to the monoline brush and choose green from the palette. Turn your sketch back on and let's ink the little leafy top. And then drag that layer below the strawberry layer. Tap on the strawberry layer again, create a new layer above that, choose the pink, and now we're going to switch to the dry ink brush, which is available in the inking section of the brush library. And we're just going to add a few little strokes for the seeds. Now you'll notice that the strawberry looks like it's just kind of floating on top of this ice cream scoop, but we want it to look like it's nestled in the ice cream. So go back to the strawberry layer, then choose the eraser tool in the monoline brush and draw 2 curved lines and erase everything below those lines. Now it looks a little bit more like it's sitting inside the ice cream. Now some of the seeds that I had drawn are now kind of in this no man's land. So go back up to the layer where you drew the seeds and just erase those extra ones. Now you can go ahead and group those 3 strawberry layers. If you're a neat freak like me, you can also select the ice cream scoop layers and group those as well. Now let's ink these 2 big strawberries. Switch back to the monoline brush, choose the light red, and ink and fill those 2 strawberries. Now drag that layer below the cone layer, then turn on Alpha Lock. And again, we're going to do our shading. So switch to the red and switch back to the soft brush. Temporarily turn off your sketch and add the shading mostly along the bottom edge and the right side. And then you can switch to the dark pink and add a little highlight on the top edge. Now create a new layer above that. Back to the monoline brush, and we're going to choose the green. We're going to ink those leafy tops. Now I've got both of these leaves on the same layer, but I want this one to fall behind the strawberry. But if I drag this layer below the strawberry, then I'm going to lose the details on this leaf. So what I can do instead is reduce the opacity on that layer a little bit, go to my eraser tool, and I'll just erase the part that I don't want to see. Now I'm going to switch to the Studio Pen brush, which you can find in the inking section of the brush library. Then choose the dark green. I'm just going to add a little line down the center of each of those leaves. Now I'm going to create another layer, choose the pink, switch back to the dry ink brush, and ink the seeds. Now you can group those 3 strawberry layers. Now let's ink the little faces. Go to the top of the stack and create a new layer. Switch back to the monoline brush and choose the dark red. Go ahead and ink those little faces. And you may need to change the size of the brush to accommodate. Now we're going to approach the face on the ice cream a little bit differently. We're going to use the Studio Pen, and we're going to use it because this brush has a taper. So start off lightly and increase the pressure toward the end of the stroke so that the width of the line changes. Then go ahead and ink the mouth and fill. Turn on Alpha Lock on that layer and choose the red. And just add a little half circle to that mouth to create the tongue. Now let's change that background color to the light blue. Then create a new layer and drag it to the bottom of the stack so that it's right above the background layer. Choose the monoline brush, switch the color to white, and go ahead and ink that circle. Now it's going to be a little tricky to get your shape to be exact, so what you can do is draw an arc and keep your pencil down so that the edit menu shows up. Tap on ellipse, and when the transform nodes appear, you can drag them so that it matches up with your sketch. And when you're happy with how that looks, just tap anywhere on the screen to exit that mode. And then complete the shape with that straight line. Then drag and drop to fill. And you can also go ahead and ink the circles that are outside of that shape. Now create a new layer right above that. Choose the blue from the palette and ink those little ovals for the shadows. And I actually don't want this white line to intercept the shadows. So I'm actually going to go back down to that layer, choose the eraser tool, and just erase a little bit of that bottom edge. Then back on the shadow layer, I think I'm going to just reduce the opacity of that shadow just a little bit so that it's a little more subtle. All right, sketch layer back on. Now we're going to create a new layer at the very top of the stack. Choose the white again, still using the monoline brush. And I'm going to ink those sparkles that are sitting outside of the circle. Now switch to the light blue and ink the dots and the sparkles that are falling inside the circle. All right, I'm going to turn the sketch off to see how everything looks. And I think it needs one last detail. Let's add a few highlights and a couple of additional line details to the ice cream scoops. So choose the Studio Pen. Let's go to the ice cream layer and create a new layer at the top of that group. Now let's first start with this lower scoop. Tap and hold on the pink section so that the color changes in the color swatch. Tap the swatch and go to the color disc view. And you want to shift this color so that you're going to select a slightly lighter version of that pink. Then we're just going to add a line of highlight on the left side of that scoop. And you can reduce the brush size and do the same here on the little drip. Follow the same process for the other two scoops. Then we can use essentially the same process to add a few line details. But this time we're going to choose a slightly darker version of each color. All right, and there we have our cute little strawberry ice cream cone.
If you decide to try this tutorial and share it on Instagram, be sure to tag me at IamGeogram so I can see your art and feature it. And if you'd like access to more content, you can join my Patreon community where I share bonus videos, wallpaper downloads, color palettes, and drawing inspiration every month. I'd love to see you over there. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.